Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Math Unlocked with your host, Mrs. Rhodes-Grierson. Now today we are back at fractions, and what we want to do is that we want to do fraction subtraction where we have mixed numbers involved. So one of the key things I want you to remember is that when you're going to perform operations with your fractions, if you notice that it is mixed numbers, convert them first. I'm going to repeat that. If you notice it is mixed numbers, convert them first. Why am I doing that? Instead of having parts and wholes, I want to have them in parts so I can see how many equal parts are there all together. Alright, so if you have not watched the video yet on how to convert mixed numbers to improper fractions, go pause, go and watch that video and come back. Because in this video we'll not go into the details, but in this video we'll just go ahead and perform the operations. Alright, so I have 3.5. so what I'm looking at is how many halves do I have in total. If I have 3 wholes here and a half here, from my 3 wholes, how many halves can I get? It really means I'm dividing each whole into 2 equal pieces. So what I'm looking at is 3 times 2 is how many? I would have 6 halves from the 3 wholes, plus I have this other half here, which means in total I'll have 7 halves, minus, I have 1 whole and a quarter. From the whole, I want to see how many quarters can I get from 1 whole. So I'll say 1 times 4, because I can get 4 quarters from each whole. So it's 4 times 1, plus the other quarter that is here. So 4 times 1 is 4, plus 1, that's 5 quarters that we can get. 5 quarters. Now I need to do subtraction, but because these are not the same sizes, because these are halves and these are quarters, I need to ensure that before I can subtract, I make them the same sizes. I know that my halves can be further divided to give me quarters, but let's look at the concept that you're used to about lowest common multiple. We're looking at the multiples of 2 and the multiples of 4 to see what is the lowest multiple that they both have in common. What I'm going to do is that I'm going to be changing these fractions to ensure that both of them have the same denominator. So we're looking for the lowest common multiple. If I look at my 2 times, 2 ones 2, 2 twos 4, and I'm not saying 2 is equal to, so I'm looking at the multiples of 2. So 2 times 1 is 2, 2 times 2 is 4, 2 times 3 is 6, 2 times 4 is 8, and it would go on and on and on. We look at our 4 times, and we're looking at multiples of 4. So 4 ones 4, 4 twos 8, 4 threes 12. I'm going to stop here because I've already seen what's the first multiple that they have in common. So lowest common multiple, lowest. I'm looking for the smallest one. So the 4 is the multiple that both of them have in common, the smallest one. I didn't go over to the 8, because though 8 is a multiple, it is not the lowest one. And because when we have fractions, we want to write them in their simplest form or lowest form, we always look for the lowest common multiple. So I found it. I'm not going to use it. I'm converting these 2 fractions here to equivalent fractions that have denominators of 4. But when I look, I notice that this one was already at a denominator of 4, which means that the multiple that we would have used was 1 here. So the numerator would also multiply by 1. That's so that remains as 5. What is happening over here is that 2 is now 4. That means I would have multiplied 2 by 2. Remember now to ensure that something is equivalent. It means that if the new denominator changes by a particular rate, the numerator must change by the same rate, so we have to multiply this by 2 as well. What is happening now is that instead of having 7 halves, we have 14 quarters. You're going to do subtraction now because these are quarters and these are quarters as well. So they're the same size. So if I have 14 quarters over here and I say take away 5 quarters, taking out 5 quarters out of 14 quarters will leave me with 9 quarters. So notice that the denominator didn't change because the denominator is an indication of how many quarters you have. And because you subtract 5 of the quarters from the 14 means that you still have 9, and 9 of what? You have 9 quarters remaining. Of course, I'm not going to leave you hanging. I have to give you one to try, and you're going to leave your answer in the comment. What's yours? You're looking at, simplify the following. If I gave you 2 and 2/5 minus 1 and 1/3, what would be your solution? Place your answers in the chat so we can work it together and see if we're on the same path.